Well, hello, fellow patriots. Today we're going to be doing a reaction to now President Javier Milei and then candidate Javier Milei from August of 2023 on Bloomberg television. I've always enjoyed President Milei's take on economics. He is an economist first and foremost, so hearing him talk on macro and microeconomics is always a treat. What do you guys think? Do you guys enjoy hearing him talk about economics? Are you looking forward to what he may do in Argentina? I can't wait to see if time tells us that this is a great success because I am rooting for Argentina. But before we get started on today's video, I'd like to remind you about a promotion that we have going with the rogue dermatologist, Dr. Viva. A lot of you have been asking about the Second Amendment eye chart acrylic print that sits behind me in all of my videos. That print was created by the rogue dermatologist. If you follow the promotional link in the description below, eyechart2a.com, it will take you directly to the website. To pick up your own 9x11 rolled poster version of this acrylic print, scroll down, click Add to Cart, click Checkout, and you can see here that the normal retail price for this poster is $20. Enter the promotion code PDPoster, hit Apply, and now you will see that the price is $0. Just cover the cost of shipping and handling. So if you would like to have your very own version of the print that sits behind me, click on that link down in the description and take advantage of this offer today. Don't wait, this is a limited time offer. When the discount is gone, it's gone. Also feel free to pick up any other items while you're there. And now back to today's video. Let's get this pulled up.
Estamos con Javier Milei.
Here we are with Javier Milei, the outsider candidate for Libertad, who won Argentina's primary election this Sunday, August 13th. Javier, thank you for joining us at Bloomberg. We wanted to ask you first on what most raises doubts among investors, which is the dollarization plan. How fast do you think it can be implemented? How is it going to work in practice? And how will you get the Congress approval?
Interesting. I am glad that this is translated. However, viewers from Argentina or Latin America, you let me know if this is accurate, because I've had a couple of you comment in my videos that the translation is not always on point. So if there's something that's wrong, please leave it in a comment below so we can get clarification. Thank you very much.
I think there's a previous discussion about dollarization. Actually, strictly speaking, is to get rid of the central bank. The dollarization is an instrumental issue at the end of the day. There are four argumentative axes. One has to do with a moral issue, which is that stealing is wrong, and seigniorage is nothing more or less than a swindle by politicians against good people. Therefore, let's say, if we consider that stealing is wrong, one of the greatest thieves in the history of mankind is the central bank.
Okay, hot take. He's probably not wrong. Central banking, with its planned inflation every year compounded over time, has caused the purchasing power of our currencies to go significantly down. Now, thankfully, ours has not gone down as much as the Argentine peso up until this point. However, the dollar since 1913 has lost over 98% of its purchasing power, which is insane. You would have to have, I think the math works out to where $1 million in 1913 to have the same purchasing power today, you would have to have 50 million or more today. That's not good. And I can see why Javier Milei would not want that to continue and that central banks are not necessarily good. There's been a big push here in the States by Senators Rand Paul, Ron Paul, and some others to audit the Fed or end the Fed. I don't know. What do you guys think? I think central banks are pretty bad. Compounded inflation over time is just not good for the average person.
The second point has to do with a technical issue, because in the Argentine case, it is more evident when a product has no demand, its price is zero. So if the local currency has no demand and its price should be zero, the equilibrium real balances are zero. Whatever amount of money a central bank wishes to impose, the counterpoint is that the price level is infinite. Demand and its price should be zero. Equilibrium real balances are zero. Whatever amount of money a central bank wants to impose, the flip side is that the price level has infinity. So, in other words, it is a naturally inflationary economy. Then there are instrumental issues related with the different models of dollarization. There is probably the most iconic proposal, which is the proposal of Emilio Ocampo and Nicholas Kaczynowski, and we have different versions to dollarize. So it's not a technical problem. There's also a political dimension that has to do with the fact that Argentine politicians, by means of seigniorage, steal 5 points of the GDP from the Argentine people.
Ooh. That's actually quite a bit of theft. But yeah, I like how they're going kind of really into the nitty gritty here. The economics of central banking, dollarization, and all these things are very interesting. And to really see that he knows what he's talking about, he's not just implementing policies blindly. He has an economics background. So he knows the impact of what he's doing. So when he talks about getting rid of the central banks, or when he talks about dollarization and other things that he wants to do for Argentina, he understands what that means much more than the average politician does. I say let him cook. So far, it would seem that since then, inflation has come down quite a bit. Again, I'm very interested in seeing what the future brings for Argentina. So yeah, let's get back to it. Interesting so far. I'm really liking it. I do enjoy hearing him talk so much.
Probably that's the greatest resistance of those thieves who want to keep stealing from the good Argentines. That is the general framework. Then there are issues which can be discussed in terms of the implementation and how much time it would take. See how Ecuador did it in a compulsive manner. It was attempted to be done in 3 months. It was not possible. Then they tried to do it in 6 months. It was not possible either. Finally, it was done in 9 months because there is an operational issue regarding the exchange of bills.
Okay.
The largest bill in Argentina buys less than $3. And in the case of El Salvador, people were free to exchange colones for dollars. This process ended up taking 24 months. Our plan is based on an intermediate option in which basically people will do it as in Salvador. But then, when 2/3 of the monetary base is converted, it'll be automatically dollarized. Therefore, the time will be determined by the people. It will be the time it takes to convert 2/3 of the base, and after that, basically it'll be dollarized.
That's an interesting way to look at it. So they're leaving the pace of that changeover up to the people and the rate at which they choose to convert to dollars. That is crazy when you think about, though, that the largest denomination bill that they have in Argentina would only buy $3. That's not very much. That's barely more than a $2 bill. And nobody uses those anymore.
So you win, you take office on December 10th, you present a bill to the Congress to dollarize, or, well, this plan of competitive currencies. How will you finance the withdrawal of those 2/3 of the monetary base?
Let's see, to withdraw to finance, you have to redeem the central bank's balance sheet. It's $40 billion, $10 billion for the monetary base, and $30 billion for LELIQs. Then you have reserves, let's say gold reserves, the Sedesa Fund, the Basel Fund, and the SDRs, which are around $10 billion. So to withdraw it, you don't have a problem. And to withdraw the LELIQs, you have government securities for the equivalent of $120 billion or $110 billion. So by trading 1/3, you would be able to redeem the LELIQs without any trouble. Then you have some sophisticated tools to make that rescue. But the truth is that even in the most basic case, where you exchange those securities for new ones under New York law, the day you dollarize, the economy eliminates the currency risk. It also becomes a credible stabilization program. Therefore, it ends up being expansive by lowering the currency and counterparty risk. Also, all this leads to less interest rate risk. Therefore, those government securities are going to have a huge rally, and you're going to get a huge capital gain. So it is a phenomenal business that very few will want to miss.
So that probably goes into some where he is meeting with Elon Musk and others and talking about how good of an investment you might get if you invest in Argentina. Now, I am not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. I am not going to be personally investing in Argentina because foreign exchanges and foreign investments are just too high risk as a person in the United States. But I do hope that they are able to pull this off. He does come off as knowing a lot about what he's talking about. Like, he seems to have really thought about this, which is a feeling you never get when you hear US politicians talk. So credit to where credit's due. He's at least thought about this process and has what sounds to the layman to be a pretty good answer. Let's keep going.
Suppose that it happens as in El Salvador. It'll take us 9 months. In 9 months, you had a return that could range between 100% and 200% per year.
That's
What
not
would
bad.
you do if the Congress says no?
I will plebiscite it.
And move forward?
No, I'll leave it to the will of the people so that the Congress can explain them why it does not want them to choose which currency to have.
And what would you do with the central bank? Would you eliminate it? At one point, you made the joke you were going to set it on fire.
Well, I'm talking about the layout, what needs to be done with that building. It's a figure, it's a metaphor. I'm referring to the fact that it no longer exists. Regarding the transition, until we manage to transform the banking system into a free banking system, the function of regulating the banks will have to be fulfilled.
I also like, and I won't switch back to full screen for just this, I do like how his answers seem to be very biased towards the will of the people. Like, I really like hearing that. He is an anarcho-capitalist, so it kind of makes sense. But always hearing a politician say that the will of the people, like, you almost never hear about that here in the States. You hear about democracy this, democracy that, but it's usually just a Democrat trying to convince you to give them more power. It's not really the Democrats or Republicans trying to empower the people to do what they wish. So it's nice to see.
Financial entity will continue to operate until a free banking system is in place.
And continuing with that idea, if you become president in 6, 10 months, 1 year, all the bills in circulation in Argentina would be dollars?
All dollars, yes.
So what would you do about the bonds? Because you were saying, well, those bonds are going to skyrocket in price. That ensures that there is no failure. Bonds are going to skyrocket in price. That ensures that there is no failure.
Well, it actually improves your credit risk because now you're going to have much lower interest rates. Also, since there will be an expansion, fiscal numbers improve. We're promoting a reform that has as a counterpart a strong reduction in public spending and a strong improvement in fiscal numbers.
Good.
Think that with a 5% adjustment, you would have zero financial deficit, which would ensure the repayment of the debt. The sustainability.
Sorry for interrupting again. I don't think our government knows what that means. A balanced budget, paying back debt? What is this nonsense he's talking about? I hope he's able to pull it off. I really do.
Ability of the debt, and we're thinking of making an adjustment of 13 points of the GDP. Therefore, we would be in a position, in addition to being solvent, to pay the debt.
Today, the bonds are 27 cents, some of them 30 cents lower. According to this plan, are they undervalued?
No, I'm not saying that they're undervalued. With governments with people either with political leaders like those of Unión por la Patria, or from Frente de Todos, or from the Kirchnerists, or people from Juntos por el Cambio, let's say, I do not know if they're poorly valuated. It is clear to me that they are very cheap, and if we win, we want to make a serious fiscal adjustment.
Let me ask you about the crime problem, because it is a very important issue in the campaign in Argentina, but also in some other Latin American countries. What is your plan?
To begin with, the area of security and defense will be under the supervision of Victoria Villarroel. She's the specialist in these matters. The most important problems in Argentina, either in the economy or in terms of inflation and growth or insecurity, she will have direct influence over two ministries, the Ministry of Internal Security and the Ministry of National Defense. What we are promoting there is to change the way of looking at the problems. There is a new doctrine in terms of security, which is that he who does it pays for it.
That sounds real based, and I like it. I also like how he's basically like, look, I'm not the expert in this. I'm going to defer to Victoria. I'm going to defer to the head of that ministry. Now, he eliminated a lot of ministries, but apparently the Ministry of Defense, probably not a smart one to eliminate. What do you guys think?
Called here Zafranism, which reverses the position and considers that the victim is the victimizer and vice versa is over.
Oh, good.
For us, the victim is the victim,
Yes.
and the victimizer has to pay.
Yes.
Criminals pay the penalties for what they do.
Yes.
That implies a reform of the internal security system or a reform of the national defense law, the intelligence law, the law that has to do with the penal code, and what has to do with the prison system.
I mean, we know he wins, right? So this interview, we didn't know that yet, but we know he wins. But why does it take a reform of the system for the victim to be the victim? Like, that seems crazy to me. Why would the victim not already be the victim? But you know what? I also see that here in the States. Look at Daniel Penny. Daniel Penny was just riding on a subway and was trying to protect the people on the subway from somebody who was threatening physical harm. As a result of those actions, somebody did die, but Daniel Penny and the people on that subway train appeared to be the victims in that. However, In the end, Daniel Penny became the criminal and the criminal became the victim because Daniel Penny is the one in jail. So maybe it's not as far-fetched as I would hope here in the United States. But at least President Milei seems to have a plan to fix that in Argentina. Is our next president in the United States going to fix our problems? I hope so. It's not looking good.
In such a way that whoever does it actually pays for it. And in this context, let's say, there is also a re-evaluation of the forces as agents that preserve order in the economy.
I want to ask you about the October 22nd election. You got 30%, the two coalitions are behind you. What is the strategy to reach the 40% or to win in the first round or go to the ballotage on November 19th?
The first step is to improve our auditing process. Even though we were able to recruit 80,000 prosecutors in record time, which we do via social networks. I mean, we recruited more, but we were able to recruit 80,000. At this moment, they do not want to open the ballot boxes because there are, for example, places where we have 0 votes. That's weird.
Did you denounce it to the commission?
Yes, we did. We're denouncing all of this. For example, how do they steal ballots? Or for example, how come kids are finding our ballots hidden in their schools? Maybe people from Juntos por el Cambio party, as well as Kirchnerists, participated actively in that. I mean, there's no difference between them. In fact, there were Zooms of people from Juntos por el Cambio inducing their prosecutors to steal our ballots. So by not having the chance to vote for us, they would vote for them. Then the estimate is that around 5 points have been stolen from us. So we'd be pretty close to winning. And regarding the issue of convincing people who didn't vote, we have the power to persuade them because they are the ones who are disappointed in the establishment and the status quo.
So it looks like there are some questions about election integrity in Argentina as well. Now, in the end, I'm glad to see that President Milei came out on top. I very much am, because so far he's doing great things, and I hope he continues to do so. But hearing that there are such issues with elections, not just overseas, but potentially here, because there have been allegations of election issues from prior elections all the way back as far as 2000. Like, we really haven't had an election since 2000 with the hanging Chads, Bush, and Gore. Since then, pretty much every election has been called into question by the losing party. Can we ever have an actual safe and fair election? Remains to be seen. I sure hope so, because this representative republic needs it to survive. It really does.
And we're the ones who best represent the opposition to the establishment and the status quo, because deep down on the other side, there are socialists with bad manners or good manners. But there are all socialists who are impoverishing the country, and they're the same from 40 years ago. They've been leading Argentina for years, and it's getting poorer by the minute. In fact, in 2001, there were 2 and none left. They are the same from then, plus they've multiplied. So that's why we say that a different Argentina is impossible if things continue the same as always. And we're here to change that.
Kind of sounds like people voting for Democrats in areas where poverty has been under their purview for decades. Why is it that we see in these minority communities and elsewhere in the United States that they continue to vote Democrat, even though Democrats have not helped them improve their situation? It is interesting. Why would you keep doing the same thing over and over and expect a different result? Just vote for a different party. I don't even care if it's a Republican or an independent or a libertarian or a Green Party, or I don't care. But if the party you voted for decades has not helped you, vote for a different one. Come on. I mean, that's what Milei is saying here. People do not like the status quo. The only way to get rid of the status quo is to vote for something different. And Milei is saying here that that something different was him. And it looks like in the end they did. So, go against the status quo. Don't keep voting for the same idiots over and over and then expect a different result. It doesn't work. Vote somebody else.
You are going to focus on the province of Buenos Aires, the federal capital.
In the province of Buenos Aires, we're evidently going to work hard because we believe that we're in a position to defeat Kirchnerism.
Let me ask you now about the international affairs. What are going to be the angles there?
Our fundamental angles are free trade, peace, freedom, and aligning ourselves to the West.
Yeah.
And our top references are the United States and Israel.
And what about China? It's one of the main trading partners.
It might be a business partner with the private sector. However, we do not make pacts with communists.
So what would you do? In other words, would you stop Argentina's relations with China?
I would not promote relations with communists, whether...
Hold on. I'll go back and I'll let him make his full statement, but this is hilarious. He's like, yeah, the private sector might do business with them. That's on them. But we do not associate with communists ever, for any reason. Based. Good job, President Milei. I agree. And you know what? We shouldn't either. So why do we keep doing that? Why? Why do we keep just flirting with communism? It hasn't worked out any time it's been tried. In the 20th century, communism unalived untold millions of people. Millions. And yet we have people here in the States that want to try it here. Every time it's been tried, a lot of people unalived. Let's not keep doing that, people. Let's vote for freedom. Please. Freedom. More freedom, less communism.
Stop Argentina's relations with China?
I would not promote relations with communists, whether it's Cuba, Venezuela, North Korea, Nicaragua, or China.
In other words, for Venezuela, are you going to change the policy?
Obviously.
And what about Brazil? It's the country's most important trade partner. You've spoken harshly about Lula in the past. Can you have a closer relationship?
No.
What do you mean? You don't think so?
In fact, I believe that Mercosur must be eliminated because it is a defectuous customs union that harms good Argentines. In other words, it's basically a trade managed by states to favor a specific class of businessmen. So that doesn't promote trade. It destroys trade. That generates trade diversion. It isn't good. It generates income for friends of the power class. It's truly horrible.
But in the world, there are a lot of bilateral and commercial treaties. It's good for the private sector.
No, it's good for those who are associated with governments in managing that trade. It's not good for the people. What's good for the people is for trade to be free, and it's not. When the state gets involved, it does harm. In fact, Mercosur works that way in Argentina. It generates a trade diversion. If it generates trade diversion, it generates harm. And who gets the benefits? Politicians who steal and favored businessmen. Then the question is, why do you want there to be a favored businessman and thieves at the expense of good citizens?
It's been said that you admired Donald Trump. Is that true?
I respect and admire all those who have managed to stand up against international socialism.
That's awesome. He was basically just like, yeah, F that. Promoting things that only help certain classes of businessmen over the citizens, yeah, F that. And then they're like, hey, do you like Trump? He's like, hey, I like everyone who has stood up against socialism. Oh, amazing. Amazing. Amazing so far. Amazing. Great interview.
And regarding the fiscal reform that you plan for the state, you've talked about 13 GDP points. Where are you going to cut, and what are you going to privatize?
Our program goal is 15 points. It is a state reform where the public spending is lowered, taxes are lowered, and progress is made in the set of reforms that deregulate the economy. We plan to cut public works, bring it to a private initiative system, the Chilean way.
Okay.
We plan to cut discretionary transfers to zero and to eliminate economic subsidies, thus recalibrating the economic financial equation of the contracts to minimize the impact on prices. That gives you 13 GDP points. But we also want to advance in the privatization of public companies.
Okay.
And that's 1 GDP point. And we want to advance in the elimination of privileged regimes, which is another GDP point. So basically, let's say that's where
15.
we plan to chainsaw public spending. And on the other hand, we're also thinking about modernizing the labor market with an unemployment insurance system. And once we are competitive at a fiscal and labor level, we can have a unilateral opening process.
One last question about commodities, the agricultural sector, which is the main engine for Argentina's economy. What are the plans for that, for oil and gas, and for the lithium sector?
When we advance in a monetary reform that abolishes the existence of the central bank, the stocks disappear, the spreads disappear. What punishes the sector the most in Argentina is the spread, where you put 200 in and then you have 100 left. Therefore, the FX unification itself is a great driver mechanism of international trade. Plus, we believe that withholdings should not exist.
And what about YPF?
It has to be privatized. The thing is that during the transition, we needed together with ENARSA to finish adjusting the imbalances in the energy sector.
Javier Milei, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Interesting. I really enjoyed that interview. The interviewer did a great job asking very good questions. And I enjoyed that Javier Milei had very good answers for them and had thought about those answers a great deal. He had numbers, he had ideas, he had everything already ready to go. Now, this was inspiring to see, especially knowing that he did end up winning after this. But I do like going back and seeing some of his earlier interviews. I know some of you on the channel have said that some of his older works on economics would be a great thing to watch. And maybe I'll do that also at some point. Thank you to those of you that made it to the end of this video. I greatly appreciate you. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure you like it and leave a comment below. If you want to see more videos like this one on the channel, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, click the little bell icon so that you can be notified when I upload additional content. If you have a recommendation for a future video that you would like to see on this channel, whether it's a topic or a video you want to see reacted to, please make sure to leave it in a comment below, as a majority of the longer videos on this channel come from viewer recommendations from people just like you. I hope you all have a wonderful week, take care of yourselves, God bless, and bye for now. Go ahead and check out one of the links on the screen now to either subscribe to the channel and see the rest of the videos of the channel, or one of the carefully selected videos that you may wish to see that YouTube has used its algorithm to select for you.